Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Here I am by the stained glass windows on the side aisles of our worship space. Sometimes I come into the worship space and look at these windows and the windows on the opposite side, just to see something beautiful, but also to find time and space to be just a wee bit more reflective than life normally gives us a chance or an opportunity to be. There's something about art that creates that space for me. I want to reflect a little today. Now, I know that in the past I've spoken about what this congregation, what you, have been able to achieve during this time of COVID. Today I want to just zero in on one thing, and before I do, let me just tell you this. In Paradise Lost, John Milton writes about the Felix Culpa, the fortunate fall. And that can mean lots of things. In art, it refers to the fact that even though we are broken and fallen, still we are able to create wonderful imaginative things. In a play or a drama, the Felix Culpa, the fortunate fall, is a terrible event that somehow by the end of the story leads to something wondrous. In theology, the fortunate fall describes the fall of creation in the Garden of Eden, which ultimately leads, fortunately, to our redemption in Jesus Christ. Now here I have to be careful though, in what I'm going to say next. Because COVID-19 and this worldwide pandemic has been a trial and a fall for the whole world. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. In this country alone, millions of people have become unemployed, and many of us have spent countless months being separated from family and friends and loved ones. And so we have every right, you have every right to say to me, wait a minute, Ken, if you're going where I think you're going, tread carefully, my friend, because there's not a whole lot fortunate about this fall. And that is true. We have lost so much. But in amongst all of that very real suffering, death, discomfort, disjointedness, even in amongst that, we have seen signs of love and grace. Glimpses of the Felix Culpa, the fortunate fall. I want to talk about one of them today. One glimmer of hope that I've seen in all this. It comes, strangely enough, through technology, which I've now been speaking to you about ad nauseum, and by which I'm coming to you today. Our new friend, technology. In a normal year at St. Armand's Quay Lutheran Church, we'd get to a certain time in the year, Marchish, when I'd have to say goodbye to so many of the members of this congregation who spend the rest of the year somewhere else. Most of them up north. This year was no exception. I did say goodbye to a lot of people. To too many people. It hurts. But thanks to technology, I've been able to keep in touch with so many of our seasonal members, our snowbirds, so many more than I normally would. Just to give a couple of examples, my Wednesday 11 a.m. Bible study, my Tuesday 1 p.m. travel through the UNESCO sites of Israel. And although I haven't made the social ministry committee meetings for a couple of meetings now, I know that before, and now in the midst of the pandemic, the Social Ministry Committee keeps meeting, and members of that team from all over the country join the meetings. The same is actually true of council meetings and Congregational Executive Committee meetings. All these people that I normally wouldn't see again until the next season are able to virtually come to St. Arman's Quay Lutheran Church and be part of team meetings, council meetings, Bible studies, and travel shows. Education, learning, service, and organizational meetings. And I look at that little screen, that little Zoom screen, and I see people smiling because they're able to see their friends at St. Arman's Quay Lutheran Church and beyond. I see them smile as they hold up their grandchildren and introduce them to church folks that would never have a chance to see their grandkids or their great-great-grandkids. I've had people kind of lean sideways and say, "This is my backyard in Oak Park, Illinois. This is my backyard in Minnesota." And I don't mean to make that sound frivolous at all. It isn't. It has been wonderful. Staying connected has been wonderful. Seeing people I wouldn't otherwise see has been wonderful. And knowing that those people are able to stay connected to this congregation, this church, this ministry that they love so much is wonderful. For me, the Felix Culpa, the fortunate fall, the glimmer of hope has been that connectedness and those maintained relationships. It reminds me of a book that many folks at St. Arman's Quay Lutheran Church know, but perhaps you don't. It's called When God Winks by Squire Rushnell. And I know we would wish that God would speak to us in a thunderous voice through the thunderstorm. Reveal himself wonderfully to us in incredibly enormous, miraculous ways. But as that book reminds us, very often, and very often overlooked, God comes to us in a little nudge, in a quiet, unexpected way. In those ways, we see God wink at us. For me, our connectedness has been that God wink. What has it been for you? Yeah, before I say goodbye, I want to pose that question. And not just rhetorically. In all of this, in all of the COVID-19 pandemic, in the ways that our lives have been turned upside down, where have you seen God smile at you or wink at you? What have been those moments of grace or joy or hope for you? Write to me and tell me about it. Write to me, pastor@sackhook.com, and in the subject line, write God winks. And I'll gather your responses together, and you can tell me if you want your name shared or not. And I'm going to put these together and have them published in Connections, so that everyone connected to St. Arman's Quay can learn from you, from all of us, the wonderful ways that God has smiled upon you, shown you his grace in what's otherwise a really trying and sometimes horrible time. Share those thoughts with me. A couple of sentences, a paragraph, doesn't have to be long. Just those simple ways that God has touched you in this time of COVID-19. So I hope that God continues to wink at you and at me. I hope you do find joy in the midst of life. And I pray that God will be with you until we meet again.